Hello, Henry. How are you?
Hello, you alright?
Good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Good.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you studying at the moment, Henry?
Well, I went to Middlesex University, but I live in East London right
Yeah,
now.
nice. And what did you study at Middlesex University?
Cybersecurity and digital forensics.
Yeah, nice.
Wow.
Louise?
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Great. You?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Where is it that you studied, are studying, have studied?
Have studied Robert Gordon University.
Nice. And what did you study there?
Software application development, but like web focused.
Very good. Are you now in employment, looking for employment? Bit of both.
I'm freelancing at the moment, and I'm planning on sort of building that up as a small business.
Yeah, nice. That sounds cool. There's a couple of freelancers here. Henry, what are you doing with yourself at the moment?
Well, I'm trying to look for a job, right? And it's just been quite difficult for me right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why have you found it difficult?
I just feel like, I don't know. It's like before graduated, I feel like I was getting interviews, but now I feel like this was before, like in like May, early May. But now I feel like since then, I just feel like I'm just not even getting replies back.
It's interesting. We hear this quite a lot, and I guess a lot of it is around standing out and how you can make your CV different. I mean, for the last couple of months, people would have been absolutely inundated with CVs. It's incredibly competitive with people coming out of university. So if it's just another CV, I have this argument with people all the time because everyone's like, oh, you have to go through the formal application process. I get that. But at the same time, if you go through all the different steps as long with everyone else, then you're one of however many. But if you do that, but also connect with them on LinkedIn, invite them for coffee, take them for lunch or whatever, suddenly you have a chance to have a point of differentiation and become memorable. And that's where, in my opinion, so many people fall down is they just go, well, I've sent out 300 CVs or I've dropped 300 CVs through a letterbox. Well, so is everyone. If everyone's doing that, you have to be a salmon and swim upstream, not follow all the other fish downstream. Otherwise, like those other fish, there'll be nothing at the end. And so it's really important that we help you try and find something unique about, maybe it's in your presentation, maybe it's in the...
I always got a feeling it's probably my presentation because I'd say I'm a bit sometimes robotic, I feel like, especially during the interviews. And the way I write, I'm very formal the way I write things. I'm a bit too formal. I've got a... Do you know what I mean?
A lot of that will come through confidence, right?
Yeah.
And you're constantly getting rejections at the moment. Like, just remember, it's all about perspective. And a lot of people are getting rejections. You're not the only person that's getting rejections, right? But sometimes you can feel like, oh, what's wrong with me? It must be all me, something I'm doing wrong. But actually, it's not. It's competitive. And we just need to work through that. I don't know if your mic is working, but if you would like to jump in, we're just chatting away about what we're all doing and how we're finding it. Henry was just saying he's looking for employment at the moment and finding it difficult with CV applications and things like that. Louise, what about you? Did you ever go through that CV application process, or did you always know you wanted to freelance?
Well, I did do that sort of CV application process when I was trying to get internships in my third year, and that was sort of with a lot of COVID. So COVID really sort of struck, and I got shortlisted for one internship, but then it was between two candidates. And they tried to hire the both of us, but couldn't. So I got pretty close.
I mean, it's interesting, right? Obviously, I didn't really even think about COVID, but of course, so many people applying now. A lot of employers are thinking, well, I don't know what tomorrow holds, let alone next month or next year. Therefore, I can't necessarily recruit. All I would say is that you guys in the digital space are incredibly fortunate because every agency I talk to is snowed under with work, massive capacity issues, desperate to find talented resource. And so if you've got a core understanding of some of the principles we talk about today, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, look at some of the platforms, WordPress, Laravel, Shopify, Magento, the list goes on. If you've got some core understandings, you become very employable. And it's a real shortage of technical resource at the moment.
Definitely.
Yeah,
like, I spoke. Sorry.
No, you go first.
Yeah, like I got a contact with like a small design agency, and they tried to hire, and like they couldn't find anyone. Like they couldn't find anyone that had the right level of expertise for what they were looking for. And I thought, but I know like so many people that would probably have that type of skill set,
Please,
we
let
really
me know.
want for that. Like,
Let's connect afterwards. Let me know, because I'm working with 14 recruiters, each charging me 15+%, and I still can't find them. So I can promise you, it's so competitive. And then also you've got these tech giants in London and those going through Series A funding and Series B funding, and they're saying, okay, well, let's go to the east of England to find development resource because it's going to be cheaper and everything else. And so suddenly, once upon a time, you would have been able to get a developer for maybe 20k, 25k, 30k, 35k. All of a sudden, this is now 50, 60, 70. And now all of a sudden, what that means is that expectations are unfairly managed. So then you get someone applying to work with you and they're like, okay, well, I'm really excited to work with you. Yeah, I'm looking for 60 or 70. And I go, okay, well, what can you do for that? Like, surely you'd be doing backflips for that. No, I can install a plugin. And you're like, oh, sweet, geez, like I can do that. Like,
exactly.
Pay for that.
And there's like a lot of things. It's like they say, like, market it as like sort of entry level or like junior, but then like the list of tech stacks they want, it's more of a sort of mid-level position.
It's crazy. So again, the bit around the employer having unrealistic expectations. There's a bit around the candidate having unrealistic expectations, and actually they're both so far away from each other right now that it's meaning more people are having to look offshore. That obviously has its pros and cons in terms of project management, in terms of timescales, in terms of quality control, etc. And actually, it just means there's a lot of people in the UK looking for work, as Henry alluded to. So, Henry, what type of firms do you apply to? Mainly kind of agencies, or?
So actually yesterday, because I didn't realize on LinkedIn you can set you're open to work. So I did that yesterday, and literally a few hours after, I got a message from some. I think it's a recruitment agency, and she was like, "Oh, I want like a full stack developer. We've got like mid to senior tier, like we're looking for people." And I was like, "Please send over your CV." So I did that, and I'm waiting to hear. And she wants to talk to me.
And would you consider relocating, or are you happy?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's in London, but if I did had to relocate, I would relocate. Depends where it is. Yeah. If it's like the furthest I'd say I'd go would probably be like the Midlands. I might go a bit further, but to be honest though, if you get past a certain point, it doesn't really matter where in the UK you are.
Yeah, and I think that the nice thing about COVID, one of the benefits it's brought is that more business owners are accepted to remote working, right? So actually, you can still live in London, travel down to an office. We've got one of our developers living in Guildford at the moment. He lived in Norwich originally, moved away, but it was like, well, let's still work together because you can just travel up once every 3 weeks, 4 weeks, join the team socials, etc. But actually have the benefit of living in Guildford, where I believe his other half has got a job, etc. So it does mean that the whole country is far more accessible, which means the job pool is far greater. Sam, please jump in if you're needing to say anything or start. I'm just
this is great. I think maybe should I make a start? I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping stuff at the beginning, just while we wait for more people to kind of jump on. So I'll just quickly whiz through it now, and then we'll get cracking. So yes, welcome everybody to the Tern Heads Student Takeover with Nathan Lomax, who is the co-founder of Quickfire Digital. And the subject we're going to cover today is what digital agencies look for in a junior web developer. So just to give you a bit of background about these events and why this all kind of started. I myself am a senior graphic designer for a London-based agency, and part of my job is being the kind of internship mentor at our agency. And over the years, I've just noticed there's still so many barriers to access, kind of what you guys have been chatting through really, about getting exposure, the networking, finding good resources, access to paid opportunities as well, getting out of kind of placement poverty, as they call it, and also locality. Hopefully, as we were saying, COVID has kind of opened that well up. So in lockdown, I've always wanted to do my own little kind of project on the side of work, I guess, and so Tern Heads was born. And the idea is that it will be a professional development platform for emerging creatives specifically, providing career content directly from industry. So people who have been in your shoes, they've been the graduate, the intern, the newbie, the junior, and also giving access to paid opportunities as well. So there's a total ban across the site. No one can advertise any internships unless they're paid. You can create a profile, you can upload your projects as you go. So if you're just starting with your portfolio, you can still start adding projects to kind of get your work seen. We've also got a directory of businesses on there as well, so you can have a look at potential companies in your area that you might want to go and approach to work for. And you can also join our forum groups. You can get portfolio feedback, find mentors, and get lots of industry insights as well. So one of the core things is trying to make the content much more relatable. So it's not just talking to the CEOs and the people who have kind of made it. It's also talking to people who are 6 months into their job, a year into their job, they've just done their first placement, and they're kind of reporting back to you. So it's kind of just trying to build a community specifically for emerging creatives to make it a little bit less daunting and kind of remove that cliff edge after graduation. And of course, you can apply for things like on most of kind of career sites nowadays. There's jobs, there's internships, there's also live briefs, competitions, and workshops as well, which we kind of curate from different places across the internet that we find, and we put them up on the site to kind of give you a one-stop shop to find everything that you might want to apply for. So during the takeover, Nathan is going to run us through his presentation to give you a bit of an insight about his agency and how they work. Along the way, if you have any questions, just use the hand emoji to kind of put your hand up. I think it's at the bottom of your panel. Or if you'd rather myself or Patrick read it out for you, then feel free to just drop it in the chat and we can come back to it at the end. We are recording this, and the recording will be available to Tern Head members. It appears in your kind of dashboard, and you can visit the private YouTube channel there with all our previous recordings of the other takeovers as well. So yes, that's it from me. I'll be quiet now and I will hand over to Nathan.
Thank you very much. So we were just talking briefly before this started, just around the challenges that people in the audience have got. And Henry, you alluded to looking for work. And Louise, you were saying similar, that actually it's a bit of a challenge right now. Chanel, I'm not sure on your challenge, but feel free to dive in at any point. And Henry and Louise and anyone else that's with us, I will try and answer your questions as we go. But essentially, I always say at the start of every presentation that if you want to be in the top 1%, you have to do what the other 99% of people are not prepared to do. Now, what does that mean in a recruitment sense? Well, if we go to Henry's example he raised with us before, which is he's sending lots of CVs, but he's not getting the traction or the throughput or the interviews, which he once was, I would argue it's because he's just the same as the other 99% of the candidates that are submitting their CVs. He's going to perhaps the web page that he's told to go to. He's filling out the boxes that he's told to fill in. He's uploading the CV he's told to upload. He's doing it in the format he's told to do it. And then he's just hitting submit. Now, that is the bare minimum of what you're required to do, but I doubt he's doing more than that. I doubt he's then connecting or looking at the business, doing a bit of research, finding the head of HR or the recruitment manager, connecting with them, taking them for coffee, taking them for lunch, trying to find out more about them, jumping on a Zoom call, whatever it may be. And therefore, we shouldn't be surprised that perhaps he's not getting the throughput that perhaps he would like. Same Louise, we talked about that at the start as well. It's really important that in today's world, you need to stand out. There is a massive shortage in web developers across the UK. Yet actually, I come on sessions like these and there's web developers screaming out for work. And I'm like, how can this be the case? It's purely because the web developers are not doing enough to get in front of the businesses, and the businesses are not doing enough to get in front of the recruiters. So a little bit of housekeeping from me today. There's no silly questions, just ask at any time. It doesn't need to be super formal. Don't be afraid to challenge or disagree what I say. If you think that you shouldn't connect with people on LinkedIn and you should just follow the proper channels, then do have your say and say, no, I disagree, Nathan. That's absolutely fine. Take plenty of notes. Tell me if we're going too fast or if we wish to talk about something in a bit more detail. And there's going to be lots of different levels in this group, so I'll try and give a little bit for everyone. So always don't be afraid to ask questions or ask for help. And actually, that's our first topic for today. It's really important that when you're trying to build out your CV and build out your career and you're starting at the start, it's really important that you ask for help. So many people will be afraid to reach out to business owner or employer and ask them what they did, their experience, how they got into it, etc. Trust me, coming with a shoe on the other foot, there is nothing more flattering than being asked how I started the business, how we got to where we are, how we made our first hire, what we look for. I'm always happy to give up time when people approach me on LinkedIn to help those get their foot on the ladder. Now, I'd like to tell you a little story. In 2012, I went traveling after finishing school, and I decided that I didn't want to go to university anymore, and I wanted to set up my own business. However, I, like you guys, would know absolutely nothing about business. I didn't know where to start. Now, what I needed is a couple of paid gigs. Now, how did I find those? I simply went onto LinkedIn, messaged the founders of different digital agencies, and asked for help or advice. How did you start? What did you do? If you could set up again, what would you do differently? All that good stuff. And I just interviewed hundreds and hundreds of agency owners. Now, what that did is it made me front in mind. Now, just simply having a conversation with those people isn't enough to remain sticky. And that's the first thing I want you all to write down and remember is that word sticky. How, when you're having a conversation with someone, can you remain sticky at all times? So if I'm talking to Louise and Henry today, we have a nice conversation. Chanel, we're chatting with her as well. And then actually after this, how am I going to remember you? Why will I remember the conversation we've had? Is it because you said something particularly insightful? Is it because you did something that I didn't expect? Or is it actually because you created a feeling of reciprocity? And that's the next thing to consider. How in your life and in your business career can you build reciprocity? What do I mean by that? How can you make others around you feel indebted by something that you have done? Let me tell you another story. At the start of the pandemic, we didn't know if the business would be here on the day one of the pandemic, let alone still today, right? It was absolutely crazy. However, we set up on a mission to create reciprocity in everybody that we spoke to. During the pandemic, we were having 400 calls a month with different business owners, agencies, contacts, anyone that we could speak to. And we single-handedly created reciprocity with every single one of them. Now, my method for creating reciprocity was to make introductions. So I would have a chat with somebody. I would find out what they did. I would find out what keeps them up at night, and I would make an introduction. And if I could, I would make 5 introductions per person. What that did is it allowed me to become sticky. Every time that person then had another conversation, as soon as someone mentioned Shopify or web development or development resource, they would instantly think of me. But if I didn't do that, and if I didn't become sticky, they have no reason to remember our conversation. So it's really important that you build reciprocity and become sticky in every conversation that you have. Now, next up to me is a bit of an agenda for today. We'll talk about... Go.
Henry's raised his hand, so I was wondering if he wanted to say something now.
Hello. Yeah, what's that R word you was using?
That's called reciprocity.
Oh, yeah.
It's the art of feeling indebted. So basically, if I was to give you £10 now, Henry, just randomly gave you £10, you would probably be ungrateful. And if you saw me on the street tomorrow, desperate for £5, I would dare say you would give it to me. Why? Because you feel indebted. I helped you, therefore you should help me. It's a bit like the model of karma. So with reciprocity, it's about how in your everyday life can you go about helping those around you so that in due course, they will come back and help you. Now, just remember with this, it doesn't happen right away. So if I help you all today, it doesn't mean that tomorrow I expect you to help me. Okay, or the next day or next week or next month. But I can almost guarantee that in the next 5 years, if any of you come across a web developer looking for work, I'd like to think that if you enjoyed today's presentation, you'll at least think of me. And you'd be like, do you remember that Wednesday evening when I listened to that guy Nathan speak from Quickfire Digital, and he was teaching me all about reciprocity and the importance of remaining sticky? And he said he was desperately looking for other web developers. Maybe I could put that person in touch and I could help him. So just bear that in mind. How can you help everyone as many times as possible every single day? Okay. Does that help, Henry? I hope so.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Cool. So again, in terms of today's agenda, I'll just tell you a little bit about Quickfire. We'll look at what digital agencies look for, and in particular, what we look for, and naturally what others look for. And then we'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end. So who are Quickfire Digital? Quickfire Digital is an award-winning digital evolution agency that's focused on e-commerce. What does that mean in layman's terms? It means we build websites in one of 3 platforms: WordPress, Shopify, and Laravel. Now, what we're doing and what you'll find as you go through your own business careers is that it's really important to find a niche and to become specialist rather than generalist. Rather than being a UX designer that does SEO, that does PPC, that does social, like you're creating just the most unrealistic situation. You want to become a specialist in what you do. Front-end developer, back-end developer, Java developer, WordPress developer, Shopify developer, you name it, become a specialist. So for us, it's about how do we now specialize our niche? And so we're focusing more and more on e-commerce. So e-commerce is a sector. Okay, if you are in construction and you want a website, yes, we could do it. Of course we could do it. But we're trying to steer away from that and really focus on a niche or a sector. Okay, and then we'll start focusing on a service type. So do we do SEO? No, we don't. Do we do PPC? No, we don't. Do we do social media? No, we don't. Do we do content? No, we don't. Do we do web development? Yes, we do. And now we're looking to niche again. Do we do Magento? No. Do we do Drupal? No. Do we do WordPress? Yes. Do we do Shopify? Yes. Do we do Laravel? Yes. And eventually we'll niche down on those. So just think how you can become a specialist. Now we're experts in developing e-commerce strategies, building Shopify and WordPress sites, and working on conversion rate optimization. But it's really important when you're writing and submitting your CVs, you showcase your expertise. What are you guys a specialist in? What makes you stand out? Why would I choose you as opposed to someone else to interview? Okay, so the reason I share what is quickfire is because the way we've structured this is a bit of almost an elevator pitch. And I encourage you all to get more comfortable with talking about yourselves. Now, I can almost guarantee that when you go into interview, you will find it really difficult to talk about yourself, unless you're like super narcissistic. But essentially, most people will find it super difficult to talk about themselves. Someone says, oh, what's the best trait? You're like, oh God, I don't know. Like, oh, it's one of my friends. I'm really embarrassed. I don't want to talk about myself. You have to be confident to talk about yourself. There's a real fine balance between confidence and arrogance. And you just need to tread that line. When you're confident about yourself, you have self-belief, be not arrogant, because confidence is an attractive trait. Arrogance is a very unattractive trait. So just think about how you can describe yourself and what you do as short and concisely as possible, how what you can say can be memorable, and then how you can showcase your expertise as efficiently as possible. I see something else in the chat. I don't know if that's late. Louise, perhaps you could ask your question.
Hi, just a quick question about when you said about niching and how you're sort of laser focusing on like a sort of really hyper specific niche. So how would you deal with clients that may want sort of other services outside of your niche? So like say, for example, you said you don't do SEO, but then if a client was wanting like obviously a really nice e-commerce website with like conversion targeting, but then they would want search engine optimization to maybe track the conversion targeting, etc.
Yeah.
Would you like have like a part or like a trusted partner that you would refer them on to, or do you just have like a list, or how would you deal with that?
Really great question. It takes me back to the thing I said the other like 5 minutes ago around reciprocity. So what we do is we have a trusted network of partners, SEO specialists, PPC specialists, social specialists, photographers, videographers, animation specialists, UX specialists, UI specialists, the list goes on. And what we do is we preach to clients the importance of avoiding full service. How can you possibly offer someone everything? Unless you've got 400 or 500 people in your team, how as a one-man band can you be the best at SEO, the best at PPC, the best at social? I mean, web in itself is changing ridiculously fast. Shopify in itself, with Shopify Unite and all their different conferences, is changing rapidly. To stay on top of that alone is a massive challenge. So to expect to be able to do that across WordPress, Laravel, Magento, Drupal, PPC, SEO, social, email, PR, the list goes on, like it's just impossible. So actually laser focusing, having a niche and saying, you know what, this is what I'm really good at. We are not good. And that's another thing, humility. It's a really attractive trait as well. Having humility, vulnerability, and honesty to say, you know what, I am great at this. I am great at UX and UI. I am great at front-end web development. I am great at logo design. I am not so strong or not so great on PR. I am not so great at email marketing, content creation. However, as a valued client of ours, we will not just leave you in the lurch. We will help you. Let me introduce you to my good friend X, who runs a specialist logo design agency who can help you with that part of the project. It creates reciprocity with the client. It creates reciprocity with the referral partner. What do you think happens the next time the referral partner gets someone that comes to them and needs web? They go, well, sorry, we just do logos. But actually, if you need web, speak to Nathan. Nathan will look after you. He does web. He does WordPress, Shopify, and Laravel. Speak to him. So really great question. Build up a partner network or associated services. Don't try and do it all yourself. And it's an amazing way to build referrals. I'd say 70 to 80% of all of our work comes through referral partners, because we send 70 to 80% of the referrals we get in out because they're not the right fit. Someone comes in, they want PPC. I was speaking to just someone today. They wanted PPC and SEO as individual services. The next thing is, when someone wants that, how can you go the extra mile? So that looks more at your own personal values. So what is it that's really important to you? Why would I hire you, Louise? Because you've got charisma, you've got drive, you've got motivation. Well, with the greatest respect, so is everyone that I interview. That's what everyone says. So how is it that you're going to go the extra mile? And just take that SEO example. Someone comes to me, I want SEO. Sorry, we don't do SEO. Now, most people are now coining on to the fact that what they should do is then say, sorry, we don't do it, but here's someone that you can talk to. Now, the extra evolution or mile of that is, here's 3 people you can talk to. By the way, because we're building the website, I'll be more than happy to sit on that call and just listen in and listen out for anything that you should be asking or pick up any questions. They're like, oh my God, this is absolutely amazing. He's gone massively above and beyond. So just think about that. Always build reciprocity, and the value of a man's or lady's worth is in their network. Remember that. So it's really important to build up a really strong referral partnership. That makes sense?
Yeah,
So.
thanks. Yeah,
Yep.
I had to find the unmute button.
All good. So who am I? Like I say, it's really, I love doing these kind of talks, because actually come 6, 7, 8 years ago, I was in your exact same shoes. I was just finishing school. I wanted to originally go to university. I got my place at Loughborough. Decided 2 weeks before not to go, and that I was going to try and set up my own business. My parents have always been in business, massively in a family guy. I've got a wonderful family here in Norwich. My family, my partner and her children is who I live with. But actually, we've also got my mum and dad and my sister and my brother that live just on the coast. But actually, it's really important. The reason I share who I am and my values is because people buy people. Okay, and this links on to Henry's point. He said he comes across, or maybe it's your point, Louise, that people come across as really kind of mechanical or stale, and you're just another CV, right? You're just another person. You've got to become sticky. People buy people. So how can you be really honest, really vulnerable, tell people your story, get comfortable with your story? You would have had ups in your life. You would have had downs in your life. So I always tell people the story. I was about 8 or 9 years old. My grandfather very fortunately put me through private school. I was incredibly fortunate. At about 12 or 13, my parents had 2 hotels. My father went bankrupt. We lost a lot of money. We were told that we had to pull out of the school. This whole school signed a petition to keep me there, including the teachers. I was incredibly humbled. I've still got that bit of paper today. And I ended up getting a 95% bursary, stayed there for the next 5 years, had the best time of my life. And now I've opened up many doors that I could have never opened because of that opportunity. Now, as soon as I share a little bit more about me, who I am, why I am like I am, people really buy into that and warm to it. So it's really important for you guys that you develop there's a great guy, Simon Sinek, that talks about the meaning of why. So just think about, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? What motivates you? For me, it's repaying the faith that my family showed me by they gave up everything so I could have something, which sounds quite cliche, but it couldn't be more true. For years, they lived in a caravan so that we could go on all the nice trips and have all the nice clothes and do all that nice stuff. And now even my partner, my new why is to give my partner the life that I want to give her, and to give the kids the life that we want to give them. And so everyone's got a why, and it's just about sharing that and being open and honest, and also vulnerable, because you will have good days and you'll have not so good days. It's important to share both. So really important to appreciate who you are, to be proud of who you are, and to share who you are. And a lot of people will remember that and buy into who you are. Okay. People don't just buy into skill set. Brilliant. You do HTML, you do CSS, you do JavaScript. What do you do in the evenings? What do you do in the weekends? What's your family life like? Have you got any children? What football team do you support? Whatever it is, that stuff to me is just as important as the fact that you can code 300 lines of code in 30 minutes. I'm also interested in what makes you tick, what motivates you, what books do you read, what do you do to relax, where would you like to go on holiday? If you won £1 million, what would you do with it? All that good stuff is just as important. It tells you so much more about a person. So what do digital agencies look for? So for me, I'm looking for a willingness to learn, particularly as a junior developer. You're coming in, you're perhaps a little bit green, you haven't got the skills that I would look for, and therefore you've got to be willing to learn. Those people, I actually interviewed one last week, and the recruiter came back to me and said, why didn't you take on that candidate? I thought they were perfect. They just thought they knew too much. They thought they knew everything, and there is, again, nothing more ugly in that trait than someone that thinks they know it all, especially when it's very clear they don't. So you've got to be willing and eager to learn. It's really important you follow industry news. If you don't already, very quickly and cheaply, well, free, go to Google Alerts, set up a Google Alert, put in web development, put in HTML, put in PHP, put in whatever programming language you want to, set up a Google Alert. It will come to your inbox every single day, and it will keep you posted on what's going on. Now, very quickly, I'm just going to stop my share while I just mute every single notification that's going off in my ear. Okay, so what are digital agencies looking for? Following industry news we talked about. The next one is about being proactive. Okay, it's really important that you go that extra mile and you're proactive. So, hey, Nathan, I've been looking at your agency. We would love to come and work with you. I actually had a quick look through your website, and I was really confused by why you did this on the blog page. Or I was really confused by why you did this, or I was really pleased with why you did this, or I thought what you did here was great, or I thought what you did on this case study wasn't great. Be proactive and stand out, become sticky. And it's really important to update your online presence. And what I mean by that is when I look at your LinkedIn profiles, I expect to see a photo of the person. There's nothing worse than a little gray avatar. Why on earth would I employ someone without a photo, without a cover photo, without a description of themselves? I simply wouldn't. So update your online presence. Just remember, and we hear these stories all the time, like these horror stories of people going for jobs, and then you look through the Facebook profile and you see that they've been on an all-night bender and they're really like chaotic. And yeah, okay, it's really important to show personality, but at the same time, it's also really important to remain appropriate. So just remember with your online presence that you do leave a footprint, and so just be cautious. Now, networking and making connections. I said earlier, the value of a man or lady's worth is in their network. And so make sure that you network, you make connections, you build relationships, whether that be with agencies, whether that be with other freelancers. What happens, Louise, if someone wants to work with you, but you're full? You can't take on any more work. Well, surely you don't tell them you can't help. You say, sorry, I can't help, but speak to Henry, speak to Chanel, speak to someone else. They'll be able to look after you. And they might take you for lunch to say thanks. They might buy you a coffee. They might even give you a commission. But either way, just look at how you can help people network, make connections, and build relationships. The other is to develop a level of understanding of industry standards. So you'll see the W3AG, like accessibility standards. You'll see there's all sorts of different accessibility guidelines that are out there at the moment that are really important and really, really worth you guys having a look at. There's various coding standards. Some of the tools I'll share with you shortly, also worth looking at. Just look at how you can keep on top of what's coming out in the industry at the moment. Look at, if you're looking for Shopify development, look at Shopify Unite, look at all their conferences, look at their blogs that they put out. If you're looking for SEO, look at the latest Rand Fishkin blog, or perhaps it's from Moz, or perhaps it's from Mark Williams Cook at Candle. There's loads of great resources out there that can really share and keep you up to date with the latest industry standards. What else are we looking for? Work experience, of course, is preferable. So, okay, yeah, I did a couple of weeks at this agency. I did a month here. I did a year out here. That is obviously appealing. I think people work in a herd mentality no matter what walk of life you're in. And therefore, for me to take a chance on someone that's super green, that's never had a week's work experience, is a risk, right? But if you've been to a couple of places, even if you've had a week there or 2 weeks there, it just gives me a little bit of comfort and assurance that I know that that person's done what I'm trying to do. I guess if I asked you to go and buy a product online, one had 500 reviews and one had 0 reviews, you'd probably buy the one with 500 reviews, assuming they're positive. It's just like that, right? It's like, okay, if you've got work experience, that's just a little comfort factor for me to know that actually, yeah, this person is capable. Maybe a couple of references, that's even better. Now, coding courses. I'll talk about some coding courses shortly. We'll talk about understanding the basics, hobbies, and portfolios. So work experience. How can you find work experience? You can join web development and coding societies at your college or uni. You can attend hackathons. You can participate in conferences and workshops. You can contribute to open source software. You can volunteer and offer in local communities. Now, I don't for one moment advocate free work experience, but what I do advocate is how you can build reciprocity by doing something for the local community. So is it that you can build a reduced price website for a local church just to build out your portfolio? Or perhaps it's a local primary school that normally couldn't afford to spend tens of thousands on a site. Like, how can you build your portfolio and still charge for it? Sure, but maybe it's a reduction in rate. Maybe it's a bit of a pro bono for a local shop, whatever it is, or a restaurant. Just look at different creative ways that you can build out your CV and build out your case studies. Now, the best thing I've ever done in all my time is getting a mentor. And now I've got 4 or 5 mentors, both professional mentors and personal mentors. So if I encourage you all to take one thing from this evening's session, it's get yourselves a mentor. Now, how do you get a mentor? Simply get on LinkedIn, find someone in your industry, find someone that inspires you, find someone that's got a great story, follow them, connect with them, ask them for 30 minutes of their time, thank them when they've given you that 30 minutes, ask for a further 30 minutes, thank them again, take them for lunch, thank them again, spend time with them, nurture that relationship, go back to them in 6 months, ask to catch up with them again, build a relationship, and before long, you've got a mentor and you didn't even know it. Okay, so really important to get a mentor so you can push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And that's a big thing. Too many people in this life, including me at times, operate within our comfort zones. How can you push yourself out of your comfort zone? Because that's when you can achieve extraordinary things. Looking at coding courses, you've got Udemy. There's free and paid courses on there, some great courses there, whether it be UX, UI, web dev, you name it, it's on there. Treehouse is also a great resource, a little boot camp for programmers. W3 Schools is a resource we use quite a lot. I see a message has come up in the chat. Oh, there are. Sam's putting all the coding courses in the chat as well, so you can see them all. There's free code camps, there's Solo Learn, YouTube. It's an amazing resource. There's so much learning. And if we look 10, 20 years ago, none of this was available, right? The amazing opportunity we've got is that all of this resource is at our fingertips and a lot of it is free. So what else can I encourage you to do? It's really important that you understand the basics. So take some notes when you're researching, but look at basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript, look at these kind of tags that we've got here, what they do. Just get a core understanding under your belt. Now, a lot of you, by the fact that we've talked before this session, a lot of you actually, this will just be water for ducks back. Like you'll get this, so it's kind of wasted on you. But for people earlier on in their journey, make sure that you understand the absolute basics. Okay, it's amazing how many people try to jump into coding and don't understand the absolute fundamentals. Also, when it comes to understanding the basics away from web development, how do you understand different types of design? How do you understand the principles of UX, the principles of UI? There's a great book, Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think. Don't Make Me Think. That's a cracking book to have a look at. Also, the core principles of color, layout, typography, what to do, what not to do. All of this information is available, and it's really, really powerful stuff. I said earlier about hobbies. Now, hobbies really matter. Hobbies and interests are a great way for future employees, such as myself, to get to know who you are, to get to know what makes you tick, but also for you to get to meet others and for you to come out of that comfort zone. So when I was 18, all my friends went to university, and I was thinking, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to sit here. I'm not going to have any friends. All my friends are moving away. And I joined something called the Round Table, which was for guys between 18 and 45. And that was single-handedly the best decision I made at that time. It's really important that you build hobbies and interests that do push you, that do challenge you, that do encourage you to meet new people and people you wouldn't normally just go to the pub with, right? Too often, if we go networking, how many times have you all gone to a networking event and you run over straight to the person that you've known for like the last 10 years and you just catch up with them about how their weekend's been and how their dog is and how their ex-partner is or whatever, and you just talk absolute nonsense, and you've gone to this networking event, you're like ticking a box, I've been networking, oh, I didn't get any work from it though, but yeah, I've done loads of networking. Well, that's not networking, right? You're cheating the system. And so there's an amazing guy, a mentor of mine called Spencer Gallagher. He's absolutely changed our life, and what he taught me was around the importance of meaningful conversations. And he talks about the principle of 50 meaningful conversations every month. So every month, how can you have 50 meaningful conversations with different people that push you out of your comfort zone, that encourage you to try new skills, try new things? So see if you can take away from this session, can you do 10 meaningful conversations? In the next month, Can you speak with 10 people that you've never spoke to before? Find out what they do, find out what keeps them up at night, find out how you can help them, and find out how you can build a long-term relationship with them. So more often than not, many employers take into consideration a future employee based on their interests outside of work. So for me, whenever I'm interviewing someone, I say, okay, well, what do you do at the weekend? What do you do in the evening? How do you switch off? Now, for me, sometimes it's really exciting if someone's like, as a web developer, oh, I love creating computer games, or I build websites in my spare time, or whatever. That appeals to me to some level. However, of course, what you could have is someone that just burns out really quickly because they're obsessed with web development, nothing else. So, okay, I also do ballet, or I do trampolining, or I play football, or I'm a massive rugby player, or I like squash, or I like going for long walks, or I like dog grooming, or I've got a side business, or I've got an Instagram channel, whatever it is. It's really important that you have passions and hobbies outside of work to allow you to switch off. Other hidden benefits of hobbies, as we know, is kind of self-confidence, right? I talk about the line between self-confidence and arrogance. It's really important that when we're going and taking up hobbies, we think about the added benefits it brings. So how can it de-stress us? For me, when I go out for dinner, which I'm doing this evening after this, it allows me to totally forget about work. It allows me to build relationships with people I'm meeting. It allows me to try new foods and push myself out of the comfort zone. And it allows me to just feel good in myself. And that's really, really important, because sometimes at work, you don't get those things. You get massive stress. You don't get a chance to talk to people. You struggle with confidence because something hasn't worked out. Like, work can be tough. So it's really important you get a switch off, an ability to get out of it. So what hobbies do we have? Very quickly, always around the room. Louise, what hobby do you have outside of work?
It related to work, but I do technical writing, which I find really enjoyable.
Nice. Okay.
And
I'm going to challenge you. What other hobbies do you have that are nothing to do?
Yeah, nothing to do with work. I like a bit of casual gaming, and I like listening to video game soundtracks.
Very good. Okay, Henry, what about you?
Like Louise, I'm a gamer. Yeah, I like game soundtracks as well. Yeah, I think Skyrim soundtrack's my favorite.
Nice. Okay.
I'm also really into music as well. I have done courses in music technology. I'm into mixing, mastering. I could play like a few instruments, and yeah.
That sounds absolutely perfect. And Chanel, what about you? Are you with us?
Hi there.
Hey.
I just do a little bit of digital art and illustration sometimes.
Okay, nice. Yeah, perfect. Fine. Well, like I say, whatever hobbies or interests you have, just quickly, there's someone else, the really nice chap that's helping us host this. Sorry, I can't see your name come up. I'm really sorry. I feel like I'm not including you. What hobbies do you have?
That's all right. I'm gym, MMA. So I don't know. That's the way that I get away from work.
It's Patrick, right?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
There we go. Gym, M&A, that kind of thing. Just anything that allows you to switch off and totally forget about it. So for me, I love playing golf. I love playing cricket. I love playing football. Just anything that's competitive that allows me to feed that competitive need that I have, but also allows me to be so engrossed in what I'm doing. A bit like video games, I guess. You're so engrossed in like killing the zombie right in front of you that you're not thinking about the stressful day you've just had. And so that's really important. Again, with MMA, like you've got to be focused on punching 10 bells at the person in front of you. Otherwise, you're going to get punched yourself. So it's really important to find something that allows you to totally switch off. So your hobbies matter. There are some examples I put up just in case we had a real tumbleweed moment and no one had any hobbies, but great that everyone with us had some hobbies, which is cool. Now, portfolios. I talked about your LinkedIn profile being a portfolio and being a shop window. But for me, a LinkedIn profile and a CV just isn't enough in today's world. And Henry, I would push back on your comments earlier about you've submitted loads of CVs. For me, I want to see a web page. If you're looking to get into web development, I want to see a web page that talks about you, that shows your projects, that shows your capabilities, that tells me what you want to do, that tells me your hobbies, all that good stuff. So think about how you can build a little website for yourselves if you guys haven't already. Now, remember, with a portfolio, this is an amazing chance to express yourself. It's your platform. It's your shop window. Make yourself stand out. Do something quirky. Do something fun. Make yourself sticky. Remember that word. Make yourself sticky. Leave contact information. So many people are like, oh, we do this, we do this, we do this. Oh, you want to get in touch? Oh, well, you've got to look through like 30 pages to try and find how to get in touch. The whole point of this thing is to get in touch. So Whenever we're building projects, we always say start with the end and work backwards. It's no different to your portfolio, right? What is the end goal of that portfolio? Well, the end goal is for someone to get in touch, say, I love your work and hire you. Okay, so make that as easy as possible. Leave a contact form, encourage people to submit a request or questions or whatever. Just be wary of load times as well. One really unattractive thing is a website that takes like 100 seconds to load because we're all incredibly time poor. So just make sure whatever you do build, just use like Google PageSpeed tools or Pingdom or GT Metrics or just something that can measure the performance and make sure it's not horrendously slow to load. So that is mostly the feedback from me today. I see another question has just come in the chat, which is, Louise, what are your thoughts on a portfolio of work, i.e. work samples versus case studies? Yeah, bang on. I think that having a portfolio that shows these are different projects I've done, ideally slightly different to each other. So again, if you're using some people will use templates and themes when they're building versus custom. Ideally, I'd like to see not always with a banner at the top, image on the left, text on the right, video next section, reviews carousel, Instagram widget, etc. I'd like to see it mixed up a bit so I can see the different range of skills that you've got. But yeah, absolutely. Thoughts on portfolio of work all the time. You should be proud of the work you're delivering. That's why I love working with web developers, is they're proud of their output. So this is a great chance for you to showcase and shout about it and tell people how proud you are. Now I'm going to leave the screen here. If you want to stay in touch, drop me an email, nathan@quickfiredigital.com. There's our telephone number as well. And I suggest we all connect on LinkedIn, reach out, and I'll be more than happy to help. But for now, I will stop my share and I open the floor to any further questions. Thank you.
I wanted to ask one actually.
Pleasure.
As an employer, is there any like consistent mistakes or bugbears that you get from applicants all the time that you wish you could just kind of shake it out of them?
Not researching the company or the person that's interviewing you is really important. So I always ask people, okay, what do you know about me? Like if you don't know that I have a podcast, that I am literally posting on LinkedIn like 2 times a day, like there is no excuse to not know anything about me. I am so active on socials, it's a joke. So you should know something. Also about the company, you should have taken at least 5 minutes to look at the company. What do we do? How do we do it? Oh, I really liked your case study of Velo Vixen or of Bremont or whatever. Like you should at least know that stuff. I think some other things to look out for that frustrate me time and time again is turning up late, not having a camera on. I appreciate that in today's world, sometimes, like Henry made a perfect reason, right? That his camera didn't work. That's fine. But if I'm interviewing somebody, I want, like normally it'd be face-to-face, but if it's got to be remote, I want to be able to see that person. You can judge a lot by someone just by looking at them and getting that kind of rapport. It's really hard to do that with a blank screen. What else would I suggest? Yeah, follow up. Follow up is massively important and so often overlooked. So many people do all the hard work, reach out on LinkedIn, connect, send a nice message, ask to take you for coffee. You're like, amazing. You do all that. You say yes. What time? You don't hear from them. You're like, are you joking? You've literally done all the hard bit. All you had to do is give me a time. That's Sky Sports. Yeah, you do all the hard work and then you just don't like follow it up. So follow up is so important.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
That's okay.
I've got sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
I've got a little bit of a question about kind of like managing a network and building from there. So like you've started to kind of like say you've started to build up your network, you're now in touch with like a few agencies, whatever, and friends and stuff, and it's there. But like, how would you go about like maintaining that? It's like, I mean, COVID's made it a bit more difficult than it would have been before. Like it's not been as easy to go to the pub or anything like that, or go out for a meal or something. But are there like certain things you do online? Like, will you check in with people? Do you think that posting on LinkedIn is a big part of it? And like, do you have kind of any thoughts around that?
Yeah, great shout. So the first is to tell your story on LinkedIn. It's really important that you leave an audit trail for people to follow. So I want to see, okay, this Saturday you're out watching MMA or whatever, because it's really important for you to get an escape from work. Next Tuesday, you maybe post saying how you've delighted with the progress on this project, or here's a sneak peek at some wireframes, or here's a little animation you've been working on, or here's a UX principle that you really believe in. It's really important on LinkedIn that you begin to create yourself as a thought leader. So for us, we're talking loads about Shopify because we want to build out people's understanding and show people that if they have a question, we're the people to ask. And it's the same for you with UX, UI, or whatever discipline you become focused on, is how can you become the best person at UX? So you're posting UX tips, you're posting the best example of this. There's a guy called Mark Williams Cook, runs an agency called Candor. They're an SEO and PPC agency. They also do dev as well, but they focus on these unsolicited SEO tips. He must have posted like 600 by now. Every single day religiously, he'll post an SEO tip. Now, if ever I'm interested in anything SEO related, he'd be naturally my first port of call, right? Because he's a point of authority. So just think about how you can do that on LinkedIn. Now, maintaining partnerships, I'd push back and say COVID's made it easier to maintain relationships, not harder. And what I mean by that is, yeah, okay, you can't do a group event, you can't do this, but what you can do is get on Zoom, get on Teams, get on Meet, get on whatever, and just have 5 minutes with someone, have 10 minutes with someone. How are you doing? How's your day been? What's new with you? Anything I can help with? Like that should be really, particularly with agency partners. Like I say, in the pandemic, I was doing 400 of those calls a month. So I know that it's much easier than it is offline. But now what we're doing is just having, like, next Tuesday, I'm down in London. I had a couple of people I was due to meet for lunch. I said, I'll tell you what, why don't we just organize like a little agency lunch, 5 or 6 of us, we can all get together. We've all got different disciplines. Be great. You can meet some other people, but you can also catch up with me. Now, the fact that I'm hosting it, even though I won't be paying for it, there's natural reciprocity, right? There's like, oh, Nathan facilitated that for us. That event was because they really enjoy it. They think of me. Yet again, all I've done is booked a venue and told them there'll be 6 of us, and the rest have just sent some invites. Like, it's nice and easy. So yeah, for your partnership building, I would really, really encourage you, particularly yourself, if you guys are freelancing, just find 5 or 6. I'll use web dev as an example. Okay, let's say you're a WordPress developer. Go and find 5 or 6 WordPress agencies that are a little bit further on the journey than you. Not only will they probably be prepared to mentor you and help you, but actually when they get a lead in, so if someone comes to me, they want a website, they got 500 quid. I can't service it, right? I physically can't service it. I will lose money on it. So rather than me saying, no, I can't help, I'll say, I'm really sorry I can't help. But there's a guy called Patrick I met the other night, and actually he's doing a bit of freelance stuff, and that sounds like it's perfect for him. What is small fry for me will be big fry for someone earlier on the journey. And I was speaking to someone today, and they're like, oh, yeah, small fry for us. We don't really want it. It's 40 grand. 40 grand? Like that's big fry for us, right? So it's like, okay, so it's all about perspective and just knowing your level in the ladder. And after a while, Patrick right now might be that guy for the 500 quid websites. In a year's time, he might be feeding people 500 quid because his minimum is 2 grand. And then the next minimum is 5 grand and 10 grand. And you eventually just kind of go up the ladder and you start feeding from others and you start feeding others. It's really important to feed and be fed rather than just taking all the feed. There's nothing worse, right, than when someone's there and they're taking everything but never giving back. Vice versa, you always feel sorry for those that are always giving and never taking. You've got to find that balance.
Do you worry about the quality of work of someone you're referring on to? Like, and how, if so, then like, how would you know how good they are and what they're like with clients and all of that?
Great shout. So the first thing is to pre-qualify people, to look at case studies, to check, to always send an example. So what we typically have done in the past is say, Patrick, I'd like to find someone that I can send websites to under £1,000 because we haven't got someone at the moment. What I'd like you to do is I've got a little trial project for a good friend of mine or a charity I'm involved in or ourselves or just something that really doesn't carry as much weight. Before I recommend you to my best contact or whatever, I'm just like, okay, there's a church that approached me that, of course, I want you to do a good job. But at the same time, if you did drop the ball, I could salvage it and not lose too much reputation. Whereas if I leave you to my best client, then yeah, all of a sudden I'm a little bit more nervous.
Fair enough. Thanks.
No problem. Louise, I just saw your comment. For those that are watching She Just Spoke, that's invaluable. Having agency contacts is a great way to get referrals for smaller clients. I'm going to share with you guys something that my mentor Spencer taught me, and it's called the 30-30-30-10. Now, there's an amazing book out there called Agencynomics. And if you haven't got a copy, I suggest you all go and buy one for those that are looking to set up their own agencies. And it talks about the model of lead generation. Now, it was the 30-30-30-10. I think it's evened itself out a bit now, but the principle remains. They say 30% of your leads will come from NEST. Now, NEST stands for networking, events, speaking, and thought leadership. So 30% of your work will come from those 4 sources. 30% will come from partnerships. That's agency partnerships or strategic partnerships. 30% should come from client referrals. So someone saying, Patrick, you've done an amazing job on our site. We've got a friend that's also looking for a site. Can you help them? And then 10% will come from your own marketing, your own PPC, your own SEO, your own social ads, etc. So just bear that in mind, like what networking are you doing? What events are you hosting? What speaking gigs are you doing? How are you building thought leadership? How are you becoming a point of authority? That looks after NEST. Are you spending time in networking where your client or potential client or ICP, ideal customer profile or ideal customer prospect, are spending their time. It is no good going networking at the local bowls club if your target market is high street retailers, right? They might not be at the bowls club. Fair enough, they might be at the bowls club, but they probably won't, right? So where do your target market hang out? So Nest, partnerships, both agency partnerships and strategic partnerships. So for us in Shopify, it's not just a partnership with Shopify themselves and with other agencies in the e-com space, but also agencies or partners that are like Klaviyo, Klarna, all these plugins that are, or apps that essentially enhance Shopify merchants experience. They're great partners for us as well. Client referrals, as I touched upon, making sure people are happy with your service and happy to recommend. And then your own podcast or whatever. Louise, you mentioned that you specialize in e-commerce and use Shopify and WordPress. How do you decide which platform is the best for your clients? That's a great question. To be honest, sometimes it's the client telling us this is the platform they want. Sometimes it's us telling them, you recommended this, we think we agree, or we disagree, and this is why. Do you solely focus on Shopify for e-commerce, and do you use WooCommerce? We do use WooCommerce as well when the occasion's right. I personally really love Shopify. I think where it's going is absolutely extraordinary. I can see it only growing from here on in. Some of the stats that are coming out around the amount of large D2C direct-to-consumer stores on Shopify is just a joke. Like, they're really swallowing a large part of the market, particularly with Shopify Plus. So we'll continue to push that. You say you specialize in WordPress page builders. Nice. There's some great ones out there. Elementor, Divi, Visual Composer. There's quite a few out there, though, to some updates for the CMS-driven sites. I actually think, you know what, if you focus on either service type or sector type. So sector type can be e-com, or can be construction, or can be residential housing, or can be whatever. Or you could go service type, WordPress, WordPress, Magento, Laravel, etc. Or you can do as you've done. You've gone on sector, but then you've also gone, you've gone on service, but you've also gone sub-service. So page builders for WordPress. And you might just say, we don't just do page builders. We are the best at Elementor, or we are the best at Divi, or we're the best at whatever others are out there, right? Like, essentially, you become the go-to person for that specific service. Any further questions? No problem, Louise.
How do you go about weighing up like what would be best for a client? Because although like maybe you've got a preference, budget would be a preference. I guess like what I'm referring to here is I had a kind of an unpaid client come through about a year ago, and like I went through kind of like pushing the way that I would like to do the projects. It was unpaid, and I use Webflow a lot now for when I want to make a website. Yeah. And so I thought like they've got a pretty friendly CMS there, and like for clients to go through the editor. And so I went through that, but I don't think I evaluated enough like how tech savvy the client was, and how like they would feel going into that kind of into that different environment and having to update their own content and go through that series of steps. Do you have kind of like a way of evaluating that before you go into choosing a software?
Yeah, we should 100% talk further after this, because I can happily give you a whole qualifying metric that we use and everything else. But essentially, awesome. I normally say, have they got a brief or a budget? What are their timeframes? Have they got a preference on platform already? Who's going to be working on the site? Does it need to be editable? If it does, are you happy with a page builder? Have you had a bad experience with a page builder before? Are you happy with custom fields? How modulaic do you need it? Sometimes people just want to change the content. Sometimes they want to literally drag and drop modules. If they're using it for driving traffic and doing A/B split testing, perhaps they will have a slightly different approach. The list goes on, but essentially it really is horses with horses. And even now, sometimes we won't get it right. We'll say, we think you should use WordPress and they should have gone Shopify, or vice versa. But normally more and more clients know the platform that they're looking for. They're just looking for the right person to execute that platform. And Louise, absolutely love to connect. I've just seen your details posted in the chat, and
I've got a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So if you want to start like your web agency, but I'm honestly, because I'd say I'm more 50% web and more 50% like native applications and things like that. So I use GitHub quite a bit. So would like having like a really good like GitHub be beneficial to you in a web agency?
I mean, it's not going to harm. Essentially, you've got to know your place on the ladder, as I talked about earlier. When you've got 20 people or 30 people or 50 people working for you, your GitHub profile, perhaps people will look at, perhaps they might not, depends on the client, if I'm honest. But yeah, for you, I would just, if you're starting out, I'd build yourself a website. I'd get yourself 4 or 5 case studies. No one wants to be the first person. I'd get yourself some nice testimonials. I'd create yourself a Google local listing. I'd get yourself on LinkedIn. I'd try and post every day, whether it be about your story, your startup journey, the people you're meeting for coffee. I'd start connecting with other agencies. I'd start building reciprocity with everyone that you meet. And then I'd reconnect in 6 months' time and ask you how you're getting on. And I dare say you're getting on quite okay.
All right. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
That's okay. I was in those very shoes not so long ago, and I was massively helped by mentors, Marcus, Laurent, Neil Adams, Gary Mansell, Pete Whitmore, like the list goes on, Spencer, Pete, etc. So yeah, reach out, connect. More than happy to help in any way I can. And I wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much, Nathan. There were so many nuggets in there. I loved it. And yes, thank you everyone for coming. Do put your details in the chat and connect with each other. I've put Nathan's details in there as well if you want to connect with him on LinkedIn, and also I've put Quickfire's website up there as well. Yeah, thank you so much again. And if you enjoyed this event, please do tell your friends. Join the Tern Heads email and follow us on social media as well to get updates on more. And we will see you at the next Student Takeover.